We're really grateful to have you here, Jordan and Donna. Really happy to see you start hosting this Becoming Love series. You have the mic.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you everyone for showing up. This is really exciting. Um, Starting today, I will be here every Wednesday afternoon, and we'll have lots of different guests on, and we will be exploring this topic of becoming love, which I really believe is our purpose here. I really resonate with Tom's idea that our purpose here in this physical matter reality is to grow up by and evolve by lowering entropy, getting rid of fear, and becoming love. So for me, it feels really, really important. It feels like the practical application of MBT. We can know the theory inside and out, but really this feels like living MBT. Um, and I'm super excited because I'm super inspired, really. I didn't start this because I've figured it all out and I'm done. Uh, I've started this because I am continuously inspired by other people who are on a similar journey, right? And I feel like I just want to create the space for us to grow and share together and make this world a better place. So, very, very excited to have our guest here, Jordan, today. Like Brett was saying, we've had the pleasure of meeting him at some conferences, Doorway to the Future, Psy Games. He was one of the judges at the Psy Games this August, which was amazing. And yeah, so he's amazing. I love his podcast. He's the host of Conscious Observer podcast. And he is also the creator of SoulSync, the author of Entrepreneurial Spirits, and he's a human design coach. And he is an intuitive investigator, and that's what I love. I think that's what I love most. So, welcome, Jordan Crowder. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Donna. It's awesome to be here and to see what you have built here. So I know Tom laid the foundation and all these people are kind of taking it and running with it in all these different directions. And what you're doing here and helping grow this community is huge. Thanks for doing this.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you to the whole team because it really is a team effort here. So thanks,
Yeah.
Tom, for setting us up. And yeah, all of us are just we're a part of the team and we're
The
doing
LCS
it.
source.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes.
got some magic working, some higher power here. So yeah, the team's assembling, and we got Jordo. Let's get into this. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. So the reason that I was really inspired to chat with you is because I've been loving your podcast, Conscious Observers. So um one of the things I love most is your perspective, like what you bring to it, because you explore so many topics that could be and definitely are explored through like a lens of fear. And I love that you always bring to it this like this positive, empowering approach. You always remind us and speak to the fact that we have free will and choice, and that the future is probabilistic, not determined, and so that we can play an active role as creators here. So I'd love to explore some of the prophecies and things that you've been talking about on the podcast, but maybe just at first, can you give us a little bit, tell us a little bit about you? How did you come to be here on this path, and maybe how you found Tom's work?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's fun when I do these things because it makes me stop and think like, okay, how did I get here? Because life moves fast. And we don't always stop to like think about, the past, we're always moving fast forward. So like 6 years ago, I was in really bad shape and I had like kind of a near-death experience / out-of-body experience as I was being rushed to a hospital and basically I was like, damn near dead. And miraculously, I'm still here and this is all awesome. But at that time, it really changed the way I looked at everything because I was like, okay, like Robert Monroe would say, we're more than our physical bodies. Well, before that, like I didn't think that. I didn't have any reason to believe that or even ponder that. And then all of a sudden I'm sitting here thinking, oh my God, like I know I'm more than my physical body because I just spent a decent amount of time out of my body. And I know that there's more to all this because like, the series of events that happened in the hospital and everything else was just kind of like a series of miracles. And anyways, after I got out and I'm going through my dark night of the soul and I'm going through all my trying to figure out like, who are we and where are we and why are we here? And all these existential questions, I fell into Robert Monroe's work and just immersed myself in his work and healed my body through so many of his modalities. going back to his old school teachings from the 70s and 80s at the Monroe Institute, and just fell in love with him and everything about him. And after spending a good year immersed in the world of Robert Monroe and all of his teachings and all the work he did with Hopi Sync and the Monroe Institute, I kind of maxed out on Robert Monroe. I was like, I just spent a year, just every single thing you can consume. And I was like, well, this sucks. Like, I'm at the end of the road and I have so much learning still to do. And that's when I discovered Tom Campbell. And I was like, oh my God, like, it's kind of like level 2, right? And I was like, all right, I'm ready for level 2. And then I fell in love with Tom Campbell and, just gobbled up everything I could of his and listened to every single podcast and read his book. And I met you guys at the symposium in Huntsville and I just couldn't get enough. And it really was this just continuation. It was like the next level because I'm very left-brained and Tom Campbell is too. And so all the analysis he does and the formulas, and it's so dense. And for some people, it's way too dense. But for me, it was like, okay, this is what I needed. It's the rational, logical part of this mystery. And then I spent years after that, the last few years, just experimenting and exploring, with my lovely wife, Sarah. We opened a metaphysical meditation studio and definitely kind of took on the role of like a little miniature Monroe, experimenting with the phenomenon in the universe and building a community. And we're opening a new one now called The Space in Grayton Beach, which is going to be a continuation of that. And I started my podcast, Conscious Observers, because throughout this journey, my wife encouraged me years ago. She was like, why don't you start like a TikTok, and just tell the world all your thoughts, because I just have a bunch of random thoughts. And I was like an investigator, so I was exploring all of these things. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I did. And then that blew up, and it's like almost, I don't know, like 400,000 followers now. And then that led to, I got this invitation to start this podcast. And, essentially they were like, well, I mean, you got big doing TikToks by just doing your daily walk and talks in the forest, just talking about profound, deep existential things. A lot of it having to do with my big toe, and just that general framework and way of thinking about things and looking at reality. And so they're like, why don't you just do a long format version of that? So I started doing that just 10 weeks ago now, and it's taken off. It's doing really well. So I just do these long format walk and talks in the woods and talk about really deep stuff. And these are always things I thought was just in my head, like I was crazy. And then as I started just putting it out there, and I got to that, that not really caring mode, like after you almost die, after that, you're like in bonus time, you're like, it's like extra innings. So you're like, who cares if people judge me, whatever, I'm done trying to impress people. And then so I was just like, I'm just going to speak my mind. And I found out that what was in my mind is in most people's minds, right? We're all having the same thoughts. It's just most people don't want to say it because it sounds kind of crazy sometimes. But look around, the world's kind of crazy. So I started doing that, and now I'm here talking to you.
I love that. And I love how genuine you are. I actually really kind of hoped that we could be walking in the forest today while doing this call, but I'm not set up for that. So
one day
we can. Yeah, but I love how genuine it is, because you can sometimes you just giggle to yourself and it's like, he is just having so much fun. Like, so you're in alignment. It feels like it's aligned with your mission here. I appreciate it so much, because it's not my mission to do the research, but when someone like you can do the research and deliver it, I'm forever grateful.
Yeah. Well, it means the world to me when people follow and resonate. But like you alluded to at the beginning, like I get this comment a lot, and it's actually one of my favorite comments, where people are like, you can talk about dark stuff in a light way. And like, that's kind of, it's, excuse me. It's not that I like, it's, the world is full of dualities, right? So there's just always going to be like a negative to the positive. And you can't just have this naivety and just only focus on the positive, right? So you do want to focus on the positive. That's, what I mean? Like, we kind of create our reality, and you want to render the reality that you want, but you can't do it in a way to where you ignore the negative side or the opposite side or the shadow side or any of that kind of stuff. You have to embrace it all, and you have to acknowledge it all. Just don't focus on it. And so I always take into account, like our future is just like a probability distribution field, like Tom would say, right? So it's like, I describe it like the spaghetti noodles in a hurricane like chart. When a hurricane's coming, they're like, here's all the probable paths that it can take. And here's like, basically it's like the probable or the possible paths with probabilities assigned to each one, right? So that's how I see like our trajectory, our future timeline. So anything that we do in life, your personal life, our collective life, your family life, your business life, the world, everything has a trajectory, and it's based on past experiences, current decisions, and then future probabilities. And so there's always going to be that one little squiggly line that goes off track where you're like, uh-oh, like that one, like I live in Florida. So every once in a while there's a hurricane coming and they'll have all these like little spaghetti, squiggly lines. And every once in a while, one of them's coming like right at my house. And I'm like, uh-oh, and it's like, yes, of course, that's a possibility. Like, of course it can come here, but look at all these other possibilities, right? So I guess the point is you understand that that is a possibility, but it's not a probability. So you do take into account, you think about it, you put it in your little, knowledge gumbo, and you're like, okay, that's a data point. Like that's something that could happen. But look at all these other things that could happen too. And that's how I look at life. So when I analyze these like sometimes dark situations or scenarios, and I speculate on what could happen or what couldn't happen, you have to take into account all of the probabilities. You don't want to ignore them. You don't want to be naive, but you have to think about, okay, we're going to focus and we're going to try to manifest and we're going to put more probability power on the timeline that we want to happen, so you can look at the big picture and take everything into account without obsessing over, the negative part. So
Yeah,
that's what I try to do.
totally. I feel like that comes through. It feels balanced, right? With an expanded awareness, you have balance. And that's what Tom speaks to so much as well. And I feel like that comes through when you were speaking of some like Atlantis and Lemuria. And so anyway, maybe we get into that, but balance seems to be a theme. And we're definitely being nudged and invited into that. And
Yeah.
yeah. So I love
Yep.
that. I love that that's your approach.
Yeah, I mean, that didn't come instantly in life. I kind of learned that through so many experiences. I used to be way more volatile. I had, kind of more highs and lows, and I would, I'm a human, so like I was learning, and as I was getting to know myself and getting to like find my right environment and all that kind of stuff, yeah, I used to be slightly unhinged in certain ways, and now I've just chilled out. Like I've realized that like you can't, like when I went through my whole recovery process, I really fell in love with stoicism and just really going into like ancient philosophy, and I found a lot of peace in that like you control what you can, focus on what you can control and let go of the rest. And so when I really got into like manifesting, what Robert Monroe would call patterning, and learned how to like use your thoughts to influence and create your reality, to actually affect and edit this physical matter reality here, you realize that your thoughts are crazy important, right? Because if your thoughts are what are actually rendering your reality, then the thoughts are the most important thing. Like I always say, your thoughts are the most important thing you put in your body. Because people focus on what they eat and drink and that kind of stuff. Like that's all super important, but your thoughts are the most important thing you put in your body. And so it really made me like realize, okay, I need to stop getting angry about things I can't control. I need to let that stuff go. I need to focus on what I actually want. And it just made me rearrange my thinking and my thoughts and my environment, what I listen to, what I watch, what I read, all that kind of stuff. And by doing that, it also brought a lot of like peace and calm to me, because I wasn't focusing on things that like got me anxious and rattled. I was just ignoring it for the most part, just because it wasn't in my kind of scope. And it brought a lot of peace to me. And so now I have this balance that I didn't used to have, but it came through trial and error and learning and growth.
It's beautiful. Well, and you stayed the course, right? Like I'm sure it took courage and dedication and a lot of energy and focus and your intent.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, I can't sit here and say like I'm a saint or anything, because this all happened because I literally almost killed myself. You know what I mean? So like it took me to get to rock bottom to have to really see this stuff and build myself back. So it was my stubbornness and it was my immaturity that led me to that trauma, which had this catalytic effect. So now on the other side, I'm much better, but I wish I could say, oh, I did all that just on my own free will because it was the right thing to do. No, that was not the case at all.
Yeah, but I think so many of us have that experience, right? Where we need something to just get big enough. Like if it's just a little uncomfortable, we can kind of keep going, but it has to kind of blow up for us to really like course correct. And
Unfortunately, yeah, humans are funny like that.
yeah. So I mean, I get it. I relate.
Yeah.
And it kind of ties into everything that you've been talking about on your podcast. So can we get into a little bit of these prophecies and things that are,
Spicy stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
the spicy stuff. Because that's kind of what a lot of them are speaking to, right? That like we're kind of like reaching this point where we got to really make a choice. Um,
Yeah.
so it sort of mirrors your experience. Actually, just to start out, I wanted to ask you, I'm curious, do you know anything about Tom Campbell and Chris Bledsoe's collab?
I do not.
Okay.
That sounds fascinating.
I know. Well, I heard on Bledsoe Said So earlier in September. He was talking about, he's like, I'm super excited. My dad and Tom are collabing this month. And I'm like, okay, what's happening? So I thought maybe you might know. But
No, I can't believe I missed that. That's going to be awesome. But no, I don't know. I don't have any inside info there. But
yeah,
as soon
no,
as I get off
that's
this, I'm going to bug Ryan
yeah,
and find out.
okay. Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, it was the episode where he was talking about the side games and yeah,
Ah,
he was just loving Tom. But anyway, I think that's really cool because Tom doesn't really lean into the UFO like ET stuff too much, but
yeah.
I'm so curious. I'm so curious to see what they're
It can be
collabing
frustrating
on.
sometimes because I love Tom. I love him.
Yeah.
He's like my uncle that I never knew that I had, and I love him more than anything. But I'm like, dude, you know some things,
Yeah.
and you're not telling us. But it's because he's like, hey, this is you have to find your own truths, And
Hmm.
Robert Monroe is a lot of the same way. He's like, if I tell you too much, then that'll kind of cloud your
Totally.
judgment, and then when you have an experience, it'll actually be clouded by my
Yeah.
experience, and then it's not your truth. And so
Yeah.
I totally get it. And he's absolutely right. But at the same time, I'm like, come on, man, like tell us more. Um, but he does the right thing. He's teaching us how to find out our own experiences, and that's exactly what he should do, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
respect
yeah,
that.
he has peppered out some stuff. I mean, he shared a few times about like when he was a child and he had his first, you know, I guess what you would call an extraterrestrial encounter. It was almost like an abduction type experience, and that's when he, as a child, I forget the age, like 7 or something, was going to this like school type place where they were taking him to this kind of training,
Right.
what Robert
Like
Monroe called sleep
non-physical.
non-physical, yeah.
Yeah.
And he talks about there being these entities that they are. He doesn't call them aliens, of course, but I mean, what is an alien really? They're just these non-physical intelligences. And if you follow Tom's work, you understand that most of everything is non-physical, matter reality. That we're in physical matter reality here, but there's so much more non-physical matter reality, right? And there's intelligences there. Like, why wouldn't there be? They've been there long before we have. So they're ancient intelligences, they're advanced intelligences, and yeah, they do interact with us in certain ways, and people have these interactions. I mean, Chris Bledsoe has them. I've
Hmm.
had them. Tom Campbell's had them. He just doesn't explicitly talk about it because he wants people to have their own experiences.
Hmm.
But, but yeah, having them two together will be crazy
Yeah,
fascinating.
it will be interesting. Super interesting to see. Well, speaking of Chris Bledsoe, do you want to kind of speak a little bit about the lady in the Easter 2026 prophecy and the
Yeah.
Hopi? Yeah. My intention for sharing these prophecies is really just for me, it was inspiring. Like I'm already inspired on this path of growth and becoming love, but seeing how, there are these prophecies that are tapping into some sort of probable future. And it just was inspiring for me to continue on this path and really make conscious choices for the greater good.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's cool about these, like, prophecies. And I'll say like quote unquote prophecies, because I don't know what
Yeah.
they are. I don't know if any of them are valid or true. But the common thread through all of them is that there's a sort of a tipping point, like something coming up that is going to be like a test. And it's a test for basically the collective and individual consciousness, because there does seem to be an individual component, meaning that, at an individual level, you can ascend or descend regardless of the collective. But there's also a collective component where it seems like altogether we can actually take a step up or a step back. And a lot of the prophecies are kind of filtered by these kind of doom and gloom scenarios, like, either you're going to go to the light and everyone's going to shift to this beautiful new world, or else. And I think a lot of that symbolism, a lot of that storytelling, I don't know how much of that part is true, but at the same time, when you look back through history, there are these reset periods where, things do get a little messy. And so we'd be naive to ignore that and say that, oh, everything's always perfect. There does seem to be a kind of a cyclical kind of a reset system, kind of wiping the set clean, maybe changing some variables and starting a new sort of a run with the program. That does seem to be something that happens. And I think that it's based on our frequency. I think that, what determines the path, what selects, like, Tom Campbell always talks about like the random draw of the probability distribution field. So there's like, basically it's like when they pull the balls out of the lottery thing, and it's got the numbers on it, right? So what we're trying to do is put like more data for the good path, so that whenever they do make that random draw out of the probability distribution field, they're going to pick the right path. And so that's the collective. The collective has to come together and raise our vibration and do the right things, find love and lead with love. And then it'll be so much easier whenever that random draw happens to pick the good path, because we've just pumped up the probability so high. So there is that collective part. So these prophecies, which I kind of stumbled into, I didn't really ever mean to like set out and talk about prophecies. It's just, it was like a recurring theme. As like you said, I like to think of myself as like an intuitive investigator. So like, I just go where my intuition takes me, and I do 2 podcasts a week. I don't pre-plan them, and I just go with my gut. And like multiple in a row were about like prophecies. I did the 2050 project, which was actually more remote viewing. But then that led into the Hopi Prophecy, and then the Hopi Prophecy led into like, Chris Bledsoe's 2026 Easter prophecy. And all these had overlap. And the main overlap between all of them is there's going to come a point, it seems, in our near future, probably in our lifetimes, where there's like this tipping point. It's like the boss at the end of the level, where, the way we get past the boss is not through brute force. We don't fight it with like swords and stuff. It's like you get through it with raising your consciousness, with finding love. Like you get through it that way. Like that's what the boss at the end of the level is. And it's kind of like that book, Power versus Force. You don't win in life with force. You win in life with power. And the way you get power is to raise your consciousness. Because then that power comes organically and naturally. You don't have to force anything. So, with the Chris Bledsoe one, they talk about, the lady presented him with this vision that, there's going to be an alignment of stars, and it was going to happen essentially around Easter 2026, and there was going to be a new knowledge bestowed upon humanity. And, people have been arguing and discussing what that new knowledge is and what the alignment of stars is and what the date is and all that. I had my opinion. My opinion is that it's on the vernal equinox, so March 20th, 2026. That's what all of my kind of research led me to that. And then whenever I kind of pulled on that thread more and went back in time, I found Edgar Cayce and his prophecies that matched up perfectly with this sort of alignment happening and this awakening and the knowledge that he said was going to be bestowed upon humanity. Because the lady was very vague about what the knowledge was. She didn't say what knowledge, but it was going to be big. It was going to transform humanity, essentially. And Edgar Cayce talks about how there's a Atlantean archive, like a library underneath the paw, basically between the right paw of the Sphinx and the Nile, halfway between. There's a library down there that has the knowledge of the Atlanteans, like not only their culture and everything, but the fall of Atlantis, what led to it, how they survived, and even, their technology, their crystal technology that they use. And the reason why it's kind of locked away is because they know that they weren't consciously able to handle this information, which is what led to the fall of Atlantis. They destroyed themselves, essentially. And they're locking this away because it can't be unopened until there's an equilibrium with the consciousness that it takes to activate and control the technology. So essentially, this information and the technology is so powerful that we aren't mature enough consciously to handle it and to be trusted with it. And that's why it's sort of locked away in this archive. And that's why there's so much mysteriousness about the Sphinx and all that stuff. It doesn't make sense to us now. But the Atlanteans built all that. And according to Edgar Cayce, we're going to unlock that archive and then receive that information. And that's what's going to essentially help us through this boss battle, this tipping point, right? But only if we are consciously mature enough to handle it and to be trusted with it. And so the more I dove into all that literature and all those things and connected all these dots, I was like, whoa, because that perfectly aligns with the Hopi Prophecy and the 2050 project and the 6,000 remote viewers of the future and all these different things. And I was like, whoa, so there's definitely, this isn't just one data point. It's like all these different data points that are kind of painting a picture that we're coming to the end of a level, right? And the way to go on to the next level is through a raising of consciousness.
Yeah.
High
So, I
vibe,
mean,
baby.
yeah, go ahead, Brett.
High vibe, baby. I was just going to say raising of consciousness. And Jordo, I just wanted to get in here and ask a little bit before we went any further away from your learning. When you were learning about Bob and Tom and then developing your intuitive side to then access this intuitive information yourself that many legends like Edgar Casey, who Jess here says her mom loves, and my mom loves Edgar Casey too. That's like her guy. And I was curious, were you using any practices to balance your mind, your hemispheres? What's your experience like with the sound technology and et cetera, stuff like that? I was just curious if you want to lightly touch
Yeah.
on that.
I mean, I use a lot of, you know, I like the old school HemiSync. So I still use the old school HemiSync, but I do really like the Monroe app, their Expand app. They have some really good meditations. I do a lot of sound meditation. I've got to the point now where I don't really need it as much. I just can meditate. I spend a lot of time in nature, spend a lot of time outside. We go on walks on the beach every day. We put our feet in the sand, feet on the earth. A lot of the balance comes from just being like knowing that your body comes from earth, right? So like I look at it like we're a higher self and a human self. So the higher self obviously is the non-physical consciousness that uses this physical body as a vehicle for this physical world. But this physical body is from the earth. It's created from the earth. So it's like docking a phone. It's like charging your phone. Go and put your feet on the ground, get out in the sun, be in nature, and that recharges you, that balances you, that gets your nervous system back to neutral. That stuff's huge for being able to connect for all the things that are necessary. Eating good, drinking clean water. There's so many things that you can do. Don't get obsessed with like biohacking and everything. It's actually very simple. Eat clean food, drink clean water, go outside in nature, put your feet on the ground. Like those are, it's not too complicated. And that really, really helps just to keep you balanced. And then, when I want to like hardcore do stuff, I do have different tapes and different things that I use. But the old school HemiSync, which I know some people don't like because it's kind of raw and it's not as beautiful as like the new stuff. The new stuff is so smooth and nice. The old stuff is kind of raw, but that's what Tom Campbell and Robert Monroe made with Mark Serto. And I interviewed Mark Serto and talked to him a lot about this. And like that old school stuff is powerful. And it, for me, it works and it's powerful, but it's too powerful for some people. I mean, it can have some adverse effects, you never know where you're going to go. It's like hopping on a train and not always knowing the destination. But it's, for me, it works, and I love that stuff. So that's what I do. Just try to take care of my body and take care of my thoughts. And I do use, like Sarah just said, twice a day grounding and sun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's not really like a very complex thing. I mean, we're incredibly complex and simple creatures at the same time. There's not much that we need to be healthy, and the body does most of the work. So just get out of the way, let the body do its job, feed it the right things that it needs, take care of it. Plug it in, let it charge. And I consider going outside, putting your feet on the ground and standing in the sun, plugging your device in,
I
So,
love that.
so that's it. I don't
Yeah.
have any real secrets or anything, but
Now
I
when
am
you
a fan
say
of HemiSync.
when you say old school, are you talking cassette tapes?
No, it's funny because like you can get the old, well, I don't know if they have the cassette tapes anymore, but they have like just the old CDs that they sell
Oh,
of the original HemiSync. But I don't even have a CD player.
that
So no,
who
I mean, I
does?
guess I'm like new school, old school. It's like the original HemiSync, but obviously digitally done.
Nice. Well, I love that. That's like simple practice. I love to think of like nature as just like this beautiful physical representation of low entropy. And so like
Yeah.
connecting to that just, yeah, feels good.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's funny you say that. So I describe reality in three segments. You have information, you have intelligence, and you have consciousness. Information is just everything. Everything's information. Um, I think that information is actually kind of fundamental. I know Tom Campbell says consciousness is fundamental, but that's kind of it's like consciousness is information. It's just the experience of information. But I look at it as information as fundamental, and then you have intelligence, which is just the systemization of that information. It's organizing that information into a lower entropy state, because pure information is kind of chaotic. It's random. And then you take intelligence, which is just organizing that information. And that's what the universe likes to do. It likes to create order out of disorder and structure out of information. So that's what intelligence is. And then consciousness is the ability to experience that information. So the information has to turn into intelligence first. It has to be systems, it has to be structured, and then the consciousness is what naturally happens whenever you experience that information. It creates qualia. It creates this subjective conscious experience, which is like an expanded, richer form of information. And so I look at it almost like a zip file. Like a zip file is like condensed information, and then when you unzip it, unpack it, it turns into rich information. Like those zeros and ones are now videos and images and all that kind of stuff. So the consciousness is what comes out. That's the experience. But like you said, nature naturally takes all that information, all that chaos and disorder, and naturally brings it together into like coherent systems. And nature, when you walk outside and you look at nature, nature has intelligence, nature has consciousness, nature has natural structure and organization. Like nature is amazing. It's like this perfect example of natural, reduction of entropy and creating systems and order out of disorder. It's awesome. And when you go walk in nature, you feel it. You get energy from it, you get power from it, you get inspiration from it, you get intelligence from it. So that's why I go walk out in the forest and I don't even half the time know what the hell I'm going to talk about. It just comes to me because it comes to me from the nature. I'm plugging myself in and to the network.
Totally. Next call outside.
Yeah. I tried it before, but like I couldn't, the signal's not very good out there.
Yeah,
So
that's fair.
I need like a mile long LAN cable so I can hardwire and just string it out there. But yeah, I really wanted to do that, and I was like, it was just too glitchy because
Love
you're
it.
in the middle of nowhere, so it doesn't work too well. And plus, we live in a small town, and our internet's not very good here, anyways.
Well, it's doing just fine today.
Maybe I can get like a Starlink. I can carry a
Four.
Starlink around.
If
Yeah,
you
I'll look
want
into
to.
that. It'd be so much fun. It's so much more fun to do everything outside.
Brett, go ahead. I know you're like fired up.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're gonna build an outdoor studio so that we can all be outside here, and if when we come visit, we'll figure it out. But yeah, for sure, we got to be outside doing this. I feel trapped in my legs, and yeah, it was like wearing shoes at the Psy game. I was like, what are these feet prisons? I was not used to it.
Yeah.
Well, the place that we're building here, it's called The Space, and it's an outdoor, we call it an outdoor gym for your body and mind. And it's a completely outdoor, open air, essentially studio. Like it's a meditation studio, it's a martial arts dojo, and it's a gym all outside, all open air. So
it's amazing. From what I've seen on Instagram, it's a dream. Yeah. I wish we were closer.
It's going to be super cool, and I can't wait to have y'all down here. Y'all are going to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to get a Consciousness Hub team assembling at your new location.
Yes.
It looks so cool.
We'll do meetups in the Blue Mountain Beach where you are in Florida, and then we'll come up to Blue Mountain, Ontario.
Canada. Only in the summer, though. We're not bringing anyone to the snow.
You don't want to barefoot walk in the snow? Come on.
The only reason I want to go anywhere cold is if it's snowing. Like if it's not snowing, if it's just cold and there's no snow, what's the point?
What's there to do?
Right. The snow is beautiful, but it is a long season here, so I just wouldn't want to put anyone through that. But if you're coming for a few days, let's get into the white snow and get a sauna going, get a fire going. I started meditating in the winter a lot outside, and you put on the right clothes, and it's actually such a vibe. Sound is enhanced when it's just snow, so yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it has like a dampening effect, right? So there's just this like peaceful forest.
It is a vibe. Like we live at the beach, and we got 10 inches of snow last year. You can see the pictures on my Instagram. We got 10 inches. It was the craziest thing. Like it went through, it shut down all the highways and everything. And for like 2 weeks or like over a week, our highway was shut down. And because we don't know what to do here. It's Florida. Like when it snows, everyone just freaks out. Like it's crazy. But it was so cool because like when you go outside and everything's covered in snow, it's a vibe. It's like it's so peaceful, it's so calm. It just has this really surreal feel to it. And I mean, I we don't get it very often here, but when it happens, it's amazing. You know, it makes people
Yeah,
run
on
outside and they're like it's like Christmas morning. You know.
Yeah, on
Totally.
Instagram, you shared that one day where there was iguanas falling out of the trees because they were so frozen and there was snow everywhere. I think Sarah
Yeah,
posted that.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
whoa.
That's southern Florida. Yeah. If it gets below, it's not even that cold. If it gets below, I think like what 45 or something like that, they just freeze and fall out of the sky and they're heavy. So if a iguana hits you, it's not fun. It's like a big deal.
I was wild. That was wild. Yeah, I'll never forget here in Toronto. There was a really big snowstorm, and everything was covered in ice. And so the only smell you could smell was the broken trees and the broken branches. It was just ice, and then all the trees that had broken. So you went outside, and it was silence, and then just cracking sounds and a smell of fresh wood. It was
Hmm.
supernatural.
Yeah. All right. We'll have
Mhm.
to come up there. And you said where y'all live is called Blue what?
Blue Mountains,
Blue Mountains.
Ontario.
How
Yeah.
crazy is that? So,
Yeah. And then we
so
were at the Psy Games and we were like traveling through the Blue Ridge Mountains where the
yeah.
Monroe Institute is. So there's a connection here for sure.
That's so wild. That's what I was gonna say. So I went to the Monroe Institute last year, and like it was my first time up in that part of Virginia. And when you're outside and you're looking out, it is blue. And that's why they call it Blue Ridge Mountains because it's blue. Like the trees put off some sort of a chemical, and it makes this blue mist. And it, especially in the morning, it's beautiful. And you just see these rolling blue hills. And so that was the Blue Ridge Mountains. Y'all live in Blue Mountain, and we live in Florida, but it's called Blue Mountain Beach, which is funny because it's definitely not a mountain, but like it's for us we're at like 80 feet elevation. So that's why they call it a mountain. It's literally a Florida
Oh,
mountain. But so anyways, it's just funny that we're all like this. I don't know. That's a very specific word, Blue Mountain, right?
right?
So
Yeah.
it's
It
following us.
aligns us, it connects us
Yeah.
all, and
Yeah.
in fact, connects us to future prophecies where we can go back to. And that is of this prophecy of the sea rising. And I know we discussed at Doorway to the Future, this prophecy you spoke of. I forget his name, but he had that team of remote viewers. And so we always discuss whether we're safe or not with what's coming, and we have a mountain here and we feel safe. How do you feel down there in Florida, and what are your thoughts on what's coming here with potential geo excursions or events like that?
Yeah. We're probably not in the best place. But we love it here. So it's one of those things where like, you have to look at the field and you have to look at all the probabilities. And so there is quite a bit of data suggesting that there's going to be some sort of ecological cataclysm. Okay. Like so many people are saying this, and it's not doom and gloom. There actually is quite a bit of data that backs it up, that there's these cyclical kind of cataclysms. Um, but the severity of them is what's in question because there's been part of this cyclical cataclysm cycle throughout history where there's been major resets, and there's been ones where there's just very localized resets and localized cataclysms. Um, so the data, like from the 2050 project, Stephen Schwartz, who was a part of the symposium with Tom Campbell, they're friends. Um, Stephen Schwartz is amazing at what he does. He's one of the most credible remote viewers. He uses armies of remote viewers and has a system called Mobius that pours through the data and actually extracts the most probable things. So it's not just one person remote viewing saying, "Oh, this happened." You're talking in this case, it was 6,000 people over a 30-year period, and it was very clear that there is sea level rise to the point where it's not just like a little bit; it's pretty significant. Um, there was no evidence of any sort of like tsunami or any sort of like actual pole shift type thing. It's more so they think that there's going to be a pretty dramatic sea level rise over a few year period that is going to impact the coastal areas. So it's not like everyone needs to go and run for the hills and move to the top of a mountain or anything like that. But when you do realize that like 80% of the world lives, within what 50 miles of the coast or something, it could be a big deal. We live literally 200 yards from the ocean. It's right there. So it's um it's something I think about, but I don't know. It's like you don't want to live your life in fear. So what I do is my plan as the very novice survivalist that I am is I want to get a really cool van, like a conversion van for like road tripping and stuff. And I'm like, okay, if the stuff hits the fan, we have a home on wheels and we can go wherever we want, right? So that's kind of my makeshift survival plan. So I want to live here as long as I can because it's beautiful and I love it and it brings me a good quality of life and you know, I enjoy everything about it. And I don't want to let fear take over and cause me to like abandon this lifestyle and move and do anything drastic because there's a very good possibility that none of that stuff happens, you know. I'm still under the mindset of let's shift it and let's choose that higher timeline and let's, you know, let's pump up the probabilities of the good path and let's just go down that path and then no one has to worry about this crap, right? So that's where my attention and focus is. But I'm still going to get a van just in case.
Love it.
Right?
Right. So it all comes back to like doing our own work, working on ourselves, evolving our consciousness.
Yeah. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, if I have a cool van and can take
Yeah.
some epic road
Win-win.
trips, yeah, win-win, right? So that's my plan.
Well, and the power of intention too, and like affecting probability. I know different, not water, but fire up here. We had like forest fires years ago and out west, and a friend's friend, he had a lot of property and it was getting really, really close. And he was kind of, like he wasn't freaking out, but he was like, no, like this isn't happening. And he just, it was like a practice. He would just walk the line of his property and he just had the intention that like everything is fine. The fires literally stopped, like
Hmm.
almost at that line, right? Like he
Wow.
didn't do anything else except he like literally meditated on it and just, yeah,
Yeah. That's
that's how it
amazing.
unfolded for him. Meanwhile, it's like everything around him.
Yeah.
So,
I always use the visual, like I grew up in Texas, and so we were in Tornado Alley, and we'd just have these nasty tornadoes that would come through, and sometimes they'd wipe out like whole towns, and there would be like one house, like untouched, and every other house is off the foundation, completely obliterated, and there would be this one house. So I always use that visual and let people know that even if things seem to be going completely catastrophically bad, there's always that one house that's going to be totally untouched, you know? So be that house, you know?
mm,
And obviously the goal is to protect the whole neighborhood and all that. But like, you know, like Stoicism teaches you, a lot of things are outside of your control and you can only control what you can control. So, you know, focus on that and you know, yourself. And it's kind of like the whole a rising tide lifts all boats type thing. So it's like, you know, like you can't save the whole world, but what you can do is just elevate yourself, you know, and then hope that that reverberates out and other people pay attention and it spreads and grows that way more organically and naturally. That's power versus force. And but there's always, like I said, that one house that is untouched, and that just shows me that there's never complete destruction. There's never total doom and gloom. There's never, you know, humans are still here. We've been around for a very long time through so much craziness, and we're still
mhm,
here. So we're very resilient. We're adaptable. I believe that there's entities higher than us that are managing the system and helping, and that we're an important part of the larger consciousness system. We're an amazing vehicle for consciousness. This is an amazing environment and learning simulator for consciousness, and that, you know, that this will be protected. This is a
mhm,
protected part of the larger consciousness system. That's pretty evident to me that, you know, there are managers of the system. And
mhm.
so they don't intervene in like each person's individual life, but they definitely won't let us destroy the place and they won't let us get wiped out. But it's up to you how you experience this world and what path you at a personal level take, you know. So
Mhm. And it's a little bit different, but it kind of reminds me of the podcast that came out yesterday. It was about afterlife and reincarnation, and you were speaking about like the idea that we kind of choose our challenge level as well. So for
mhm.
those of us who have like incarnated now, we're here, and potentially, we're like here for the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, this is a wild time to be alive. I mean, it's so fascinating. There's so much happening. There's so many different, you know, we're coming up on like the technological singularity and the artificial intelligence singularity, and people think we're coming up on like some sort of a um, geologic singularity of some sort. You know what I mean? Like like Earth itself, Gaia is a living, breathing, conscious entity. You know, and it's going through its own spiritual awakening. We're going through this like collective spiritual awakening. There's a lot of things happening at once. And I firmly believe, and the more you study, you know, incarnation, the life between lives, the work of like Dr. Ian Stevenson and Dr. Michael Newton and people like that, that, you know, have put together well over 10,000 case studies and decades of research, we do reincarnate. And there's a lot of evidence that just suggests we do choose our next life. It's like picking a character in a video game. And a lot of times we pick characters that put us in difficult and precarious situations because of the amount of learning that you get and the, the development of your consciousness. The whole reason we do all this is for our consciousness to learn and grow. I describe it like a pilot using a flight simulator. Like our consciousness uses this physical matter reality to learn and grow at a consciousness level, same way a pilot will go into a flight simulator to become a better pilot. And, if a pilot goes into a flight simulator, they don't put it on easy settings. Like, okay, let's just be in a nice clear day and let's just have a nice calm landing. It's like, well, you've done that a million times. You go in a flight simulator, experienced pilots, and they'll have like one of the engines fail, and they'll have like a nasty thunderstorm with like 70-mile-an-hour crosswinds. And they'll do all these wild things in the simulator because it makes them a better pilot. So our consciousness comes into this life to challenge itself and to see what it's made of and to learn and to grow and evolve. And it can't do that if everything's on easy mode, right? Like you're not going to learn anything, especially if you've had dozens or hundreds of incarnations. So you come into hard lives to see what you're made of, and you get extra points for that. So it seems torturous. Like we're like, why would we do that to ourselves? Well, why would a pilot make a flight simulator hard? Why would you go to a personal trainer at a gym to put you through the ringer and have you lift extra weights and run and jump? Like you do that because that makes you stronger. The resistance makes you grow.
Yeah, there's expansion on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just don't understand it in here,
Well, yeah. And when you're in it, you're stuck in it. You
Yeah.
got to get out of that and get the expanded view. I want to ask Jordan if there's anything else you want to share specifically before I open up questions to the community.
No, I'm good.
No? Does anyone have any questions for Jordan? Just raise your hand.
There's one here in the chat by Mark. I'll just read it for him since he's already texted it.
Nice.
I would love to ask Jordan, what you feed your thoughts is everything, in quotes. In light of this, how do you discern how much of your perception is a projection of what you have, quote, fed into the hologram/simulation? This seems to be this distinction between Robert Monroe and Tom Campbell, i.e. the realization that the observer decides. The gateway experience, for example, presents a model of reality based on Robert Monroe's interpretation of symbols that often presented as entities. So if the map is not the territory and the observer decides, then it is the responsibility of the individual to recognize that they have the potential to create their own illusions with their own bias. This seems almost inevitable, regardless of our intentions. How do you resolve this paradox, especially in light of sharing your map with others who will likely assume it to be the territory, as many do with the symbols presented in the Gateway Process / Monroe Institute or any other model map? ?
Yeah, I mean, great point. And so, like I love Gnosticism, right? I love early proto-religions. And when you study, like, especially Gnosticism, which, Jesus was a Gnostic, they talk a lot about that you have the spark of divinity within you, and you have a direct connection to source. You have a direct connection to whatever you want. Like we can give anything labels, names, whatever. Like that's what religion does. It says it's called this, or it looks like this, and art will, give it like images and stuff. But at the end of the day, when you trace it all back, like Tom Campbell talks about, there is a source. There is a source. And Robert Monroe talked about there is a source for all this. And we have a connection to that source. And if you're in tune with the non-physical, if you're in tune with that source connection, anyone can tell you anything. And you have an internal BS meter. And it's not a BS meter meaning like someone's trying to deceive you. It means that you know your truth. Like you inside know if something's true or not. So I can tell you all day long something. But if you go out there and you experience it, or if you sit at home and I'm telling you things right now and you're sitting there going, no, that doesn't resonate with me. So, but you have to make sure that you're not too filtered and indoctrinated. Like, because if you have all these layers on top of you that you're running all these things through saying, well, I was told this and this doesn't match up, or I was taught this and this doesn't match up. Forget all that. Erase all that and just go back to your own natural connection to source and say, does this resonate? Does this seem right or genuine? And the best thing you can do is just go out on your own completely open-minded and experiment and then find out and see, okay, does this jive with what Jordan said or Tom said or Bob said? Because these are just our own personal thoughts, right? Like these are my thoughts. Like I'm in no way telling anybody what to believe or think, but when people do share, it gives you a little bit of a framework and a little bit of inspiration and a little bit of something to build off of. So I don't think we should say, okay, no one should ever share their experiences or say anything because it's going to cloud someone else's experience or anything like that. Because we wouldn't even be sitting here talking if it wasn't for people like Robert Monroe sharing his experience and Tom Campbell sharing his experience. So I do believe that it's healthy and it's good to share your experiences, but always preface it with, this is just my experience, right? You need to go out and find your experience. When it comes to like, say, people like Dr. Michael Newton, he was a hypnotherapist, a clinical hypnotherapist and psychologist who had over 7,500 case studies of people that he had taken through hypnosis to the life between lives. And these people didn't know each other. He was extremely careful about not leading people and anything like that. And so one way we can look at this is when you have thousands and thousands of people literally saying the same thing in a way. I mean, they would still describe it in slightly different ways because it's all being run through their own psyche. But when you peel it back, there's commonalities there. You can start to see a bit of the objective framework of reality. You can start to say, okay, there are some commonalities here. These people are from different religions, different cultures, different backgrounds, different ages. They didn't know each other, and they had a very similar experience. This happens with the research into near-death experiences as well. And it starts to paint a picture that, okay, this is a subjective experience, and we are rendering our own reality. Like John Archibald Wheeler says, it's it from bit. This is a participatory universe, but there is a framework. Plato would call it the Platonic realm of forms. There's this Platonic realm of forms, which is mathematical and geometric. It's all sacred geometry, and it is the structure and the framework. It's the architecture of reality, and that is objective. That can't change. That is the stable framework of reality. Now, everything under that, you have an imaginal realm, and then you have the material realm. Those are representations. They're shadows of that, or they're virtual realities of that. So that's all subject to interpretation. You can render that, manipulate that, edit that. Each person has their own like VR headset, and they're seeing the world through. And each person's reality is going to be slightly different than the other person's. But that doesn't mean that there's also not a completely objective framework that everything is built upon. And that's just kind of how I see it.
That was good. That was good. I like that. Um, well done answering that. And great question. Now, Jess, she's one of our uh, unique team helpers here. So have fun, Jess.
Hi, Jordan and Sarah, if she's still hanging out here in the background. I just love the work you all are doing. Side note, I bought your manifestation course. I just really love it. I love how it feels so grounded and just a lot of the things that we talk about in the MBT space. And so it's really cool. And so thank you
Thank
for
you.
all that effort in. And you made it super affordable. So, in terms of all the people can buy out in the world, I was like, oh, that's nice. It's,
That was the point.
I know, yeah, totally. So I appreciated that. It was noticed. And so I have two questions for you. And the first one is, I hear you consciously make the message to say, I see this as a simulator for, a consciousness simulator, versus you hear Tom say it's a virtual reality. Like, what is the difference what is the difference in your mind between those two?
Yeah, and great question. And it's a very subtle nuance, I would say, because where Tom's a physicist, so he knows that when you take anything, like you take this cup and you drill down to the very, very basic, elements of it, there's nothing there. There's no materialism. There's no physicality to this cup. Everything's just essentially vortices of energy and information. So when he says virtual reality, that's essentially what he means, is that there's no real actual physical matter reality. It's all virtual in a sense. And I completely agree with that. What my sort of theory, the part that deviates just a little bit, is that I do believe that this physical world that we live in, this earth, even having said that everything is essentially like virtual particles, that it is real in the sense that like it exists. Okay. Like if all of us weren't here, it would still be here. It's not like it's only like Einstein famously said, I want to believe that the moon's still there even when I'm not looking at it. But when I study quantum physics, I know that the moon's not there when I'm not looking at it. I don't think it's that extreme. I do believe that this world has been rendered and it's stable. The same way that, like, if you play a video game and you turn it off and then you come turn the game back on, that level turns right back on. Like it's rendered when the game's on, but it still exists in the form of like compartmentalized structured information. And that structured information exists. So this world, like I talked about before, nature wants to organize itself into systems. It takes that information and turns it into intelligence. This world is an intelligent system. And the human being is an intelligent system that is born from this world, right? So nature's doing its thing, and it created this world and it created these human beings. That all exists. And then our consciousness is the non-physical part. The consciousness is what uses this physical world as a simulator. The consciousness says, ooh, that human being and that earth is a great training ground for consciousness development. And it can enter into it and have these experiences and learn and grow at a consciousness level. So the simulator part, I look at it from the consciousness point of view, as opposed to most people look at it from the inside out. I look at it from the outside in. From the outside in, our consciousness sees this world as a simulator because it can use it to learn and grow. It can have these physical experiences, knowing that this isn't base level reality, knowing that when you die in this physical life, you still go back up to the non-physical. So the consciousness persists. The consciousness never dies. It's just playing a game. So this world is a simulator to consciousness. So that's the way I look at it. So just slightly different than the way Tom Campbell looks at it, but we're all kind of describing the same thing.
Do you feel like you get kind of that metaphor from Robert Monroe's, 3,000 year ahead kind of prophecy, if you will, where he sees, and because I learned that from you, where he kind of sees consciousness kind of descending into the physical form. Is that where you kind of grasp that metaphor?
That reinforced it for me. I actually discovered that after I created, so I have what I call the simulator theory, and it's my differentiation. Can't say that word. From the other theories, because simulator theory is very prevalent and a lot of people talk about it. And I do agree with many aspects of it, but I don't agree with the coldness of it. The fact that it seems to take like the soul out and the natural aspect out of reality. And I see so much soul in reality. And I see so much like this natural world is very real and it's very important. And I don't want to take that out of the theory and out of the situation because I just don't think it's right. So my theory goes into the fact that this natural world exists and other natural physical matter realities like it exist, and they're all real. They're objective places. The not real part in that sense is our consciousness, because it's the thing that comes in and goes out. It comes in and goes out. It's the thing that has the ability to go to another star system, to go to another physical matter reality and have a life there in that physical matter reality. And when we do that, that one's real, but this one's real too. It doesn't disappear just because we're not here, because other people are here playing in the simulator, having their own experiences. So when I learned about Robert Monroe going to, and it's at the end of his second book, Far Journeys, when he goes to year 3000 and whatever, and he sees that instead of having out of body experiences like we have now, they have what are called in body experiences. They literally, like we look at ourselves as a physical body that every once in a while can have this weird out of body experience, whereas they look at it as their non-physical consciousnesses that can come into a physical avatar and have a physical experience at will. And they look at it as like a kind of like how we would rent a car or a jet ski and go have some fun and stuff. So it's like we get to the point where we ascend and we remember essentially that, oh, we are more than a physical body. We came here at one point just to have like some quick learning experiences, and here thousands of years later we're still doing this because we kind of get sucked in. It's like it's addicting. It's like Van Wilder, that when you leave school, the real world starts. So you try to stay in school as long as possible. But at a certain point, we're gonna ascend to the point where we're like, okay, we don't need the physical body, but we still appreciate it, and it still serves a function and a use. So we still take care of the earth. In the future, they were stewards of the planet. They took care of the earth the way you would take care of a child, even though they didn't like permanently live in the physical body. They saw the importance of it and they honored it and everything. So that's why I really see that the earth is crazy important, and it's virtual if you really want to get granular, but it's as real as it gets as well. So
Okay. Well, and then I suppose then one of the things I entered kind of the MBT community and Tom coming from a mitochondrial health space and the decentralized health space. So I knew all about, just the blue blocking and the grounding and all of these things. And then I meet Tom and he's like, well, it's like a virtual reality and it's not really like, kind of how you perceive it. And I was like, oh, so then all this EMF stuff I'm paying attention to isn't really important, but it kind of is. And then you come along and you seem to say a lot of the mitochondrial health stuff, but you don't really come out and save mitochondrial health.
Mhm.
But you seem to be very much paying attention to it within this rule set. And so I was just
Mhm.
kind of
Well,
curious.
like Tom would say, it is a rule set. So those things are real and they do have a real impact and effect because that's part of the rule set that we live within, right? So in this virtual reality, there are rules. That's why I can't just fly. There's certain rules that restrain us. And some of those rules are how our cells work, how our organ systems work, how different things affect. There's like a cause and effect here. And those laws of nature and those laws of physics govern this world. And that's our rule set. So things like mitochondrial health and all that are actual things because the rules set, you know, says that. You know what I mean? That's part of our rule set that govern this world. Um, so I think sometimes when he says things like oh, everything's virtual reality, he just means from like a physicist point of view, like you know what I mean, like nothing is really 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 real because when you look into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, you have that mentality. You're like, okay, nothing is real, and then you realize, oh, we do render our world, and all that's very very true. But there are still rigid rule sets in this. If you want to call it a virtual reality that we're in, there are rigid rule sets. So the things you're doing, biohacking type things, eating healthy and clean, all that kind of stuff does make a difference because that's part of the rule set. So it doesn't just mean because everything's virtual reality, I don't have to worry about anything. I can just eat junk and smoke cigarettes and drink booze all day and just say, but I believe these are healthy. Like you do have mental power. The placebo effect and nocebo effect are real things and it can influence your reality, but there are also rules and you do have to be aware of the rules of the game.
Okay. And I think Tom, when I kind of got to ask him that question, he also, alluded to, if you're doing it from a place of love and all of that, it's going to be much more effective than if you're doing it from a place of fear, which, and so I definitely had come into the space coming from a place of fear and needing to protect myself versus, and I guess that's the final question I'd ask you is, when you think about protecting yourself from, or protecting your mitochondria or whatever, are you protecting yourself or are you loving yourself or how do you see
Yeah,
it?
well,
Yeah.
I would say, okay, there's people like centenarians, people that live well over 100 years that don't know what a mitochondria is, right? So they're not out there biohacking, they're not doing any of this stuff. They also don't have a fear of it because they don't know what it is. So in a sense, ignorance is bliss because if you're not worried about something, you're not putting that negative energy in you. So you just want to make sure that you balance everything, like take care of yourself and do all those things, but don't become obsessed with it because once you start thinking about like, ooh, that's an EMF and ooh, that's got toxins in it, ooh, that's got plastics in it, then you do make things worse than they have to be. So it's just all about balance. It doesn't mean don't be aware of those things because those things are real things. Just definitely keep them balanced where they don't take over, where you don't kind of become a hypochondriac. Because if those things go away, there'll always be other things out there trying to kill you. The world is a precarious place. It's semi dangerous and also very beautiful. So just make sure to focus on the beautiful part, knowing that there's dangers out there but try to live as simply as possible because like I think it's all about simplicity. Like I said, when you study these areas of the world where they have people that outlive normal populations by decades, um, they're not doing any of the crazy stuff we do here. They're not hopping in saunas and ice baths and sitting in front of red lights and doing all this stuff, which I do all those things. So this is no way as a judgment thing. I do all those things. But you look at those people and you're like, wow, like a lot of them don't even brush their teeth daily and they have perfect, like, they don't have cavities. And it's like, okay, what are y'all doing that's so effective? They're living simply, and they're living off the earth. And that's just it. When you realize you come from the earth and that the earth is the thing that you need to focus on, um, just focus on that. Spend as much time in nature as possible and make sure all of your stuff comes from the earth. Like we fill ourselves with supplements and all these things, and so much of it's artificial. So much of it is like a simulation of Earth. Like everything's a simulation of Earth. We're trying to simulate vitamins and minerals and nutrients, and we're trying to simulate the sun's light. We're trying to simulate hot and cold. Well, the Earth does all those things. So get as much of it from the Earth as possible, and then supplement with the things that you can't. If you're people like Bobby, Donna, and you're living in Canada, okay, you might need a sauna because it's cold up there, but if it's already naturally cold, well, guess what? You don't need an ice tub. You can go outside, right? So like try to get as much of your biohacking from earth as possible. And it reduces the amount of like stress and worry that we try to, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, so there's a place I love to go out on the beach here. I moved to El Salvador for the mitochondrial health stuff. And so there's a place where I sit on the beach, and I noticed the other day I turned around and there would be 3 cell phone towers looking at me. Now in the mitochondrial health community, they would be like, "Oh my God, that's not a good place to sit because all that,
mhm.
RF is coming at you." And so then the other day I decided to look at it and say, I'm going to absorb all the information that's goodness that's supposed to come through me, and I'm going to let everything else filter it out. Now, do you think I'm like just like being insane and I'm being like, what's your take on that?
No, I would just focus on the good. I would say, okay, I'm in nature, fresh air, under the sun, grounding, sitting at a beach. Who cares if there's a tower there? You know what I mean? Like the good outweighs the bad. Like just enjoy, what you got in front of you, and don't worry about the other stuff.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and visualize non-physically you being protected by that. There's stories of these ascended type people that can go near cell towers and live there and just be fine, or they can actually touch their phone and they break their phone systems because they're so high charged. So it's up you like. Did you meet Ed? Ed, that guy. I bet he could. I wonder what he would say about this. Ed,
Ed
Electric Ed.
Edwards.
Yeah,
Electric Ed.
Did you meet him at Psy Games?
I briefly did. I didn't get to like talk to him or really meet him, but
Yeah,
no,
he's
interesting guy.
yeah,
really wild.
yeah.
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 But yeah, I guess just my final thing to say would just be there's always going to be obstacles and things, dangers, and all this kind of stuff. Always, that's never going to change. But the only thing you can really do is just I had this motto whenever I almost died. I had my near death experience and my body was completely broken, rock bottom, organs failing, heart about to explode, completely. I couldn't even walk. And I realized after that I was like, I have to make myself as hard to kill as possible because like nature is always decaying. It's like it's always like trying to um fall apart. You know what I mean? Like that's just what nature does. Like it's growing and it's healing at the same time, but it's decaying. Everything decays and it goes in these cycles. So you have to make yourself very, very hard to kill. So I was like, okay, I got to be strong. I got to be tough. I got to do all these things. And when I started doing all that, I worried way less about all the things that I used to worry about. Right. So it's kind of like I think a lot of the times when we worry about things, it's because it's an insecurity. It's might not be as confident in our own like health or rituals or habits and stuff. And then we let these things scare us because we're not prepared. So, like in the prepper world, they say, be prepared, not scared, right? Because if you're prepared, you're not scared. The people out there that aren't worried about the end of the world, that aren't worried about cataclysms, that aren't worried about stuff, are the people that are prepared. They're like, bring it on. So it just goes back to like, if you take care of yourself and you have confidence that you're doing all the right things, then all those other things kind of fade away because you know that you're doing everything you can and you have that confidence and that calmness. And you're like, hey, things are going to happen. This is a short game for all of us, but at least I'm doing the right things, and then at least you can just be happy and enjoy life.
I love that.
Thank
That
you.
really, thank you, Jess, for those amazing questions. That
Thank you,
really
Jess.
ties into becoming love in the sense that, yeah, we want to like be eliminating fear and worry. And I think, I don't know about what you would think, Jordan, but I think that, yeah, the lower entropy we're operating at, like in our system, then we're kind of able to interact with other things more easily,
Yeah.
external things. I don't know.
And it's tough because like I'm in all those communities too. And like, people will put out like alarming stuff. They're like, did you know that this does this to you and this has this? And you read it and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that. Like someone the other day was just like, did you know that all rice is fake? And if you eat rice, you're basically eating plastic. And I was like, oh shit, I like rice. So it's like there's all this stuff that's trying to scare you. And it's like you just have to like at a certain point be like, okay, like information overload, you know what I mean? Like it's too much. So it is this balancing act. Like you want to be informed, you don't want to be like ostrich with your head in the sand, but you also don't want to just run around like freaking out, scared because there is so much data and it's too much. So I try to like just be like, okay, how can I simplify things much? It's still be informed, but simplify things. And it's tough. It's a balancing act for sure.
Mhm. Simplify and make the next best choice that you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Without
Yeah.
like
And just take care of
spiraling.
yourself. Like that's it. Take care of yourself. I think that's the most important thing people can do. A lot of people want to like save the world, and it's exhausting to try to save the world. You realize the world's made this way because it's a obstacle course. We can't save the world. If we saved it, it wouldn't be effective. It wouldn't be the world that it's supposed to be for our soul development. So our goal is not to save the world, it's to survive the world. It's to navigate the world and to just help people along the way, But everyone's on their own journey. So just focus on yourself, take care of yourself, and let that radiate out and influence people around you. And it's not being
Beautiful.
selfish. It's about love. It's like you have to
Yeah.
love yourself.
Yeah.
If you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else or take care of somebody else? You have to
Yeah.
love yourself first. And then when
For
you
sure.
do that, it makes it so much easier to love other people and to see everything else. It's like when you're in an airplane and they're like, when the oxygen masks fall, make sure you put it on yourself first. You have to take care of yourself first, or you can't take care of other people.
Great point. Thank you for your insight, Jordan. I know
Master
we're
wisdom.
master wisdom.
Hey,
We're at our time. I want to respect Jordan's time and everyone else's. Um,
yeah, thank y'all so much.
thank you for
Oh man,
coming.
thank you, Jordan. We have a lot more content to make, and I'm going to be reaching out with you because we have barely scratched the surface on our collaboration and creation potential.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Hey, anytime you guys call, I answer. So I look forward to talking with y'all again and the whole community. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And thank y'all for building this awesome thing. I'm excited to be a part of the Consciousness Hub and see it grow.
Yeah.
mhm.
We're happy to have you here. I see you joined. So yeah, you'll be in the loop.
It's
Yeah.
official.
It's
Woo!
official.
Make sure everyone here, you go check out Jordan's stuff. Go listen to his podcast. Go follow him on social media. He is an entertainer that is top tier. So he is a gift here on earth. Thank you, Jordan, for being so intuitively and logically talented. You're so balanced. Your content is so good. It's fun watching you grow. I remember last year at the Doorway to the Future event, you were just getting going. And then at Sci Games, you were getting people pulling you over for celebrity photos and
Yeah.
shots. So you're only getting started, buddy. And I love it. Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah. Jordan's lovely wife, Sarah, has been so a key piece in organizing all of this. And she will also be coming on Becoming Love in November to share gratitude practices. So there's lots more to come. Thank you to the whole team.
Again,
Yay.
one last thing before I check out the gratitude part. I can't
Yeah.
believe I didn't touch on that earlier. Is by far one of the biggest. I mean, you talk about biohacking. Nothing has an impact like gratitude, and nobody knows it and teaches it better than Sarah. So I'm excited for her
Woohoo.
coming up and talking on this platform.
We are too. We're super excited to have her. Yeah, it's a huge piece. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Happy
Thank you,
Wednesday,
Jordan.
everyone.
Yeah, I'll be hanging out here if anyone would like to ask some questions. But Jordan, because the volunteers were all going to hang out, but Jordan, feel free to appeal. Thank you, brother.
I have a podcast I got to go on after this, or else I would love to hang out.
Well,
I
we
got
have
to
more
get
time, dude. It's just the beginning. I really appreciate this. What, Donna, well
absolutely.
done.
Well,
No, thank
thank
you guys. It
you.
was a
And I
pleasure.
look forward to seeing what you guys co-create.
I got a
See you
big
soon,
interview
Sarah.
coming up today, so stay
Nice.
tuned. I
Yeah.
have something exciting to
Ooh,
announce.
let's go. Make sure you
So
share everything on the hub.
on the hub. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
will do.
Post it on the hub. All
Cool.
right.
Yeah, will
Thank
do.
you.
Awesome.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye,
Jordan. Bye,
Jordan.
Sarah.